going to get into a conception of what a God is. And by the way, I don't think you're going to have a lot of differences there with mother either. Let's see. No. Yeah.
I feel the quote means like people get blinded with love and they like put too much power into the thoughts of their like partner that they start dictating their lives without them knowing.
How do you mean that? Finish that last part about dictating their lives without them knowing it.
Well, like they start worshiping like their love interest and they believe in a certain, I don't know, as I guess political group. I'm not saying that it's political, but I'm just saying this like an example. It's like let's say they believe in, I don't know, they like believe something else that contradicts the other person's beliefs, and because they contradicts.
Alrighty.
Conquered it.
Because it's different, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna let you explain.
Contradicts, yeah, because it contradicts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it contradicts.
That's not different. All right.
Yeah, it is different.
It
is different. It is different. So, like, because it contradicts their belief, they end up shifting the other person's perspective because, like, they love that person so much.
So in other words, it's the love then that causes a person to shift what they think.
Yeah.
So love can force you, not force you. Love can entice you to compromise who you are.
Yeah.
And you lose yourself. That's dangerous.
So maybe religion is supposed to be the most valuable thing in your life, and so when you have another spouse, you end up giving so much more time and mental thought and your money to them than you do your religion. So you end up replacing your religion, you end up replacing God.
Spouse. So in that case, then your God your spouse becomes your God. I don't think that's a speech
That it is.
It's a Freudian. I don't know.
You think about it.
Yeah.
You think about it.
I would say someone committing to a toxic person, so that's why it's considered a religion cult.
Is religion toxic?
No, as in like the person is toxic and you're kind of like attached to the person. You're committed to the person.
You said yes, religion is toxic. Explain.
Religion causes lots of stuff like wars and stuff. I mean, causes a lot of problems in the world.
Like what?
Like looking about Hitler, Aryans versus the Jews. Something to do with
I was thinking more like Templars and the Israel.
We're going to go back 600 years to pull it out of history. Y'all remember the 13th century, right?
It does separate us, I guess, in the sense we do feel like
What? I mean, think of it as, religion separates us, but there, a lot of things separate us. Focus, guys, focus. What else? Yeah.
Maybe he means that like love is alive just like religion, since he's atheist.
Yeah, so knowing a little bit about his background could be helpful here. He is an atheist. And you're going to notice that he doesn't, anything stand out about his spelling here? He's got a lowercase g. He doesn't have it's not a capital G. And it's a God. So he's talking about, so start thinking about that in terms of gods, especially a pantheon of gods. What are they like? Like Zeus, right? Zeus is the famous one. Yeah, what's Zeus like? He's what?
That's a shocking.
No, somebody else said. He's what?
Horny?
He's a rapist.
Yeah, right.
Well, he is.
He is that reality.
No, but but guys, that's important. That's
Half of Greek
important
mythology is just
because-
getting it on.
One more time. One more time. One more time.
Half of Greek mythology is just Zeus getting it on.
What's the other half?
I don't know, Dina getting it on?
It's the gods boring. So here's the thing. If Zeus, so we think about Zeus as this god, where does this idea of Zeus come from then? Now we tend to think of religion as, well, sometimes people tend to think of religion as just like, oh, it's something that's used to control people. That's so like 6th grade, man. That's really, save that for your emo records. It's so small thinking because it represents something so much larger than just it's used to control people. What isn't? You don't think science is used to do that as well? You don't think evolutionary theory is used to do that as well? You don't think that the whole school system was founded by a guy, John Dewey, who said they can stay with their parents on Sundays, we have them the other 6 days? This is the guy who founded the educational system who said we're setting out to undo the moral direction of their parents. Everything is used. Everything can be used in these kinds of ways. But start thinking about why it is that these things manifest in the ways that they do. Isn't it a weird thing? So Zeus is a rapist. What else does Zeus do? Defeats his father, so he overcomes the father, becomes his own person, and he's. Is this somebody who's worthy of worship? And why are there temples worshiping him? One of the 7 wonders of the ancient world was a statue dedicated to worshiping him. Why would we worship Zeus?
Well, in what we're talking about right now, I think it's kind of like represents us as people. Like our God represents them. Like they're not perfect.
Explain, yeah.
They're not human.
Keep going, you're right.
That's really all I had.
Now, you got way more than that, man, believe me. So like Zeus, so Zeus he overcomes the father, he's the supreme god, but he does all these terrible stuff. So why is it that the Greeks look at him and say he's worthy of worship? What happens if you don't worship Zeus, by the way? Kills you, yeah, kill you. Yeah. So now, start
Whoa.
Zeus gonna come down and clap you.
Not interested in your fantasies, man. We're in class right now. Now, what is it about Zeus? You don't want to be, but set yourself up, man. Just contra. Hey, look at Zeus. What is about him that's worthy of worship then? Now think about this. What is it that the Greeks admired about him such that they viewed him as being worthy of worship? What they admired about him? What's that? Intimidating? And again, what happened if you didn't worship him? Yeah, he killed you. So this is a god that they put at the top of their pantheon and said, this is the ideal to which we attain. What it was, he was powerful. That tells you something about the Greeks, that they admired power. They admired somebody who could, warriors. We tend to think of the Greeks as, toga-wearing philosophers who just kind of went around and stared at their belly buttons and tried to figure out the nature of the universe. But there's so much more than just this, Like this class I was talking about Diogenes. Diogenes the philosopher. Not too bad, Diogenes, man. Diogenes, maybe you've ever heard of Diogenes. That's the fascinating part. He was a contemporary of Socrates. In his own time, he was more famous than Socrates. The difference, though, is that Diogenes never wrote anything down. We have a couple of treatises that we might have come from him, which are just like partial. But in terms of him, most of what we know about him comes from other people. Because Diogenes was an ascetic, which means that he believed that you lived your philosophy. You didn't necessarily write it down. Socrates, by the way, also was an ascetic. He never wrote down his philosophy. Plato, his student, writes down his philosophy. Typically 20 to 30 years after Socrates' death. And so Diogenes, this guy's off the wall, man. He's, as an ascetic, he wants to live as simply as possible because he wants to not be connected to the material world. There's this great story where all that he owns in the world are his clothes, his robes, and he has a cup. He uses the cup so he can drink out of the well, and that's pretty much all he owns in the world. He goes around and people feed him. They call him the dog of Corinth because he goes around and he eats the scraps of food that people leave behind. Yeah. So what does he do? He goes around and starts pissing on people.
I remember.
Why? Because he says that they're going to call me the dog of Corinth, and I'll be the dog of Corinth. And they asked him, why do they call you the dog of Corinth? And he said, because I'm kind to those who feed me, and I sink my teeth into those who slight me, just like a dog. And so he goes around, he pees on people because they want to call him the dog of Corinth. There's this great story where he's in Corinth and they're being invaded, and so the people in the city are losing their minds trying to figure out what the hell to do. They're running around crazy. So he grabs this big vase, a big vessel, and he carries it to a hill. He starts rolling it up the hill while everyone's losing their minds. It's a true story. And people are like, everyone stops because it's Diogenes, the great philosopher. What are you doing? He says, I'm rolling this vase up the hill. I'm like, why? He says, everybody else is wasting their time. I figure I should too. This guy carried a lantern, and he walked around the marketplace during the daylight with a lantern. They asked him, what are you doing? He said, I'm looking for an honest man. You go up to people's faces looking for one honest man. This is a guy who all he owns in the world again are his robes and a cup. And he gets angry one day because he goes to the well to get some water, and a little kid goes up there and drinks from his hand. So Diogenes throws his cup. He's pissed off because a child found out how to live more simply than him. Never used his cup again. This is a guy who's so famous in his own day that Alexander the Great comes to visit him. And what's Diogenes doing? Well, he lived in a barrel. He just got a big barrel and he lived inside the barrel. That's what he did. And so one day he was just sitting in the middle of the street. Why did he sit in the middle of the street? Because he was the dog of Corinth. He would just sit there and think about something. He liked the sun. And so Alexander the Great approaches him, comes with his whole retinue, approaches him, and asks him, says to him, you're Diogenes. He says, you know who I am. You're Alexander. And you know my power. He said, I'm a huge fan of yours, essentially. I'm here to grant you anything that you want. Anything you want. You name it. It's within my power to give you anything. Let me bless you, please. Let me honor you because you're the great Diogenes. Diogenes says, anything? He says, anything you want. And Diogenes essentially says to him, get the fuck out of my sunlight. Because his whole group was standing around him there blocking his sunlight. And so Alexander steps away from his sunlight, and Diogenes thanks him, and Alexander starts laughing. This is the guy who can kill anybody he wants. And Diogenes speaks to him this way. And Alexander says, if I were not Alexander, I would want to be Diogenes. And Diogenes says, Alexander, if I were not Diogenes, I too would want to be Diogenes. But this is the guy who shows up, and his whole existence is kind of a rebellion against Athenian society, or against Greek society. And Socrates, his very existence itself is a rebellion against Greek society. The philosophers show up in Greece not when it's building up, but when it's being torn down, because these are the ones who ask the questions, what went wrong? What's going wrong? How can we fix it? The philosophers don't tend to show up when things are going well, because nobody wants to hear them. They show up when things are going poorly. This is when Socrates shows up. This is when Diogenes shows up. This is when Aristotle shows up. This is when Plato shows up. This is when Heraclitus is there. All these guys are there because they realize that things are falling apart. And so the Greeks, they weren't these, they were, of course, total aware philosophers, but before that, they were warriors. This is how they expanded. This is how they conquered. So when you look at a god like Zeus, and you say, God, why would they worship Zeus? Because he's an ass kicker. That's why. He's a warrior. They love him. They love the fact that he's a warrior. Because gods always end up resembling the people who create them. The real question is, why is it that the Romans and the Greeks, of course, originally, why is it that they worship these imperfect gods? You nail it right there, because these all reflect us. All of us can look at the gods and say, they're like me but faster, or they're like me but stronger, or they're like me but immortal. And you have these other characters, the demigods. Those are the ones who were more admirable. Hercules, these are people who were more morally perfect, closer to morally perfect, because they were half man, half God. They were half mortal, half immortal, kind of like you. And so we looked at those figures and said the actions and things that they do are the things that we should admire and try to be more like. Be more like the gods in the positive ways, less like man in the negative ways, and aspire to that thing. So the real question becomes, when you look at religions like Western religions, you've got Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, and you look at the God that they created, that's a hard God, man. This is a God that's perfect. This is a God that 7 times says, be perfect for your Father in heaven is perfect. It doesn't say, oh, you mess up sometimes, it's okay. It never says it's okay. It says to be perfect. That's a much harder standard. What is it about that God that shows up that all of a sudden becomes infinitely more attractive than the gods who say, we all screw up, and so you can screw up too? What is it about this one epoch, this one time, that ushers in a God that's perfect? And we sit there and go, we should be more like that, but my God, we never can be. Why would we worship that thing? The idea is supposed to be, it lends towards a perfect ideal that we can orient ourselves, that we can strive towards. One of the problems that we have today is we have these idols, we have these figures, and we from the past, and we're doing everything that we can to just tear them apart and say, look, they're horrible human beings. Thomas Jefferson owned slaves, piece of crap, huh? Martin Luther King Jr. had children out of wedlock, cheated on his wife all the time, piece of crap, huh? Gandhi used to sleep in a bed with little girls, naked little girls, to prove that he could stay chaste. What a pervert, huh? He was a pedophile. Yeah, and Gandhi was a racist as well. Yeah, Gandhi's big complaint about the way they were treated as Indians. He wrote that he was angry with the British because the British treated them like they were Africans. And can you believe that? We're not Africans. That was his big complaint. Gandhi was a racist too. You look at all these people throughout history, and now we go through, we try to find those things wrong with them and then tear them apart, and then surprise, surprise, we accept these terrible things about ourselves. We don't strive towards perfection anymore. Why not? Well, nobody's perfect. Well, if nobody's perfect, then that means you're fine just the way you are. Okay. Then why would you ever try to get better? Why would you ever try to improve? The fact is that our brains were hardwired towards religion. We're hardwired towards worship. You're going to worship something. I don't know what it is that you worship, but you certainly worship something. Is it a boyfriend or girlfriend? Are you the person who sits there and says, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, they're my everything? It's problematic, man. Are you the person who is always posting about how you're going to get that money? Yeah. Is fame your God? Are you famous? Attention? What is your God? Everybody has one. Everybody orients themselves towards something perfect, or some idealized perfection. When you fall in love with somebody, it's really no different. When you fall in love with somebody, think about why is it you fall in love with somebody? Like you meet someone, and what are they that makes them so wonderful? Ask me. Is it? Yeah, what about them? Is that? They complete me? I mean, that sucks. That means I was half missing. Yeah. So maybe your order and their chaos. Maybe your chaos and their order. Think of the characteristics, though. Oh my God, they're so nice. Yeah, really? You're a nice person? Really, though? You really want a nice person? Well, they're kind. They're sweet. Lots of people are kind and sweet. What else? They're smart. Maybe. Maybe they're just smart compared to you. I don't mean that sounds terrible. I don't mean that in a horrible way. I just mean maybe because, like, for example, approach everyone you meet as though they know something you don't know, because they do. You all know stuff. Like, I have more degrees than most people have letters in their names, but you all know stuff I don't know. You all know lots and lots of stuff I don't know. And so, if we only focus on the things that you know, you can walk around like really, really damn smart. And you are, if you know lots about something. So maybe you're just seeing this one side of them. But you're going to realize, though, that you start to amass a bunch of superficial characteristics. And then, even maybe you might say, well, they're loyal, they're trustworthy, and all of these things might be true. They might be true. But we start to put people on this extreme pedestal, like, oh, they're perfect in all these ways, or maybe we're afraid to say perfect, so we'll say they're perfect for me anyway, whatever that means. So you take a person and you essentially make them an object of worship, but it's not because of who they are; it's because of who you are. It's a Rorschach test. In other words, you see something in them that you want to be there, so you project it onto them. And then what happens when they're not that thing? What happens when you start talking about, like, just, I don't know, you ask them in school and they have no idea what the heck's going on. But you knew a lot about Fortnite. Or you knew a lot about fill in the blank about what it was, and you start to realize, well, they're, okay, but you know what, that's okay. And then you find out that, they're kind of nice, right? I mean, depending on. Well, they're nice to people who are nice to them. Are they really nice then, or are they just reciprocal? But we start to make lots of excuses for people because we don't want to lose our gods. It's the same thing if anyone in here is, if you're Christian, if you're Jewish, if you're Islamic, you've got some stuff to answer for, man. How is it that God can send the angel of death into Egypt and kill the firstborn, innocent little babies, just to let the Jews free out of Israel, out of Egypt? How is it that you can reconcile that with the God of love? Jesus talks more about hell than he talks about heaven, way more about hell than he talks about heaven. We always remember Jesus as this loving, kind figure. If you're a Muslim, you're going to have to answer for the idea that everywhere Islam has ever been spread has only ever been spread by war. Never by missionary, always by war. How is that? This is a religion of peace. If you're a Hindu, you have to answer the same sorts of things. What is it about your religion that sets up these caste systems that people can never climb out of? That damns people to a lifetime of squalor and misery. Whatever religion it is, you're going to have to look at the imperfections of it and love it or not, either way. But people are going to be like this too. You can create a perfect ideal of a person when you actually see a person for who they really are, and you can actually love them for who they are. Not put up with, not tolerate, not be okay with, but actually love the thing that you see. And especially at the beginning of a relationship, right? You're going to see all the best traits about a person. And that's just natural, man. Of course, that's just cliche to say at this point. But we all wear masks. And the mask that you show this person, eventually it's going to get tiresome, it's going to get itchy, it's sweating right there, and the mask will come off slowly but surely, and you'll see little signs of it. And then one of the problems we get so far into it, you're a year into it, 2 years into it, 3 years into it, it's like we've put in too much time to walk away. Yeah, so then you condemn yourself to a sinking ship. That you didn't realize they had holes in the hull as soon as you left the port because they hid that from you. And so you'll commit to and go, I'm going to stay on the sinking ship to put that much time into it. And so we have to recognize this notion that gods are the things that there's more of us in the gods than there is the cosmos. Gods always look like the people who create them. And our spouses, or our jobs, or whatever it is that we create to worship is just like that too. It's an idealized form of something that we're imagining. Just like I told you before, that monsters are the things that inhabit the unknown because they come from our imagination. Well, your gods are the things that inhabit the light. Still the unknown, not the darkness, but the light, the unknown light. And those are the things that we hope and strive towards. Those are the things that we put our faith in because we think that they're going to make us better people. Maybe your God is money because you believe that money's going to make your life better. Maybe it's this other spouse because you think that person can save you by completing you. Maybe you think it's fame because if you just had the adoration and love of the masses, your life would be better. Whatever it is that you think is going to complete your life, or maybe even extend it into all of eternity, is your God. The question just becomes, what is your God? That's all part of knowing yourself. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Thursday. Yeah, I didn't even explain to you yet that God is dead. That'll be next time, I think. That'll be fun. You can direct all your emails towards me. Don't forget, 2 weeks from tomorrow, August 30th, all the journals are due. No exceptions, man. If parents die, grandparents die, if the world blows up, if there's a whatever, if there's a school shooting, I want you to get here and turn that journal in before everything goes south. Yeah, exactly. Taking shots. Get that thing through the door. Yeah. People, I'm telling you, people will show up on the Monday afterwards and have all kinds of reasons that they didn't get it turned in. But because I was driving to school and the car broke down, and I know. That's why I tell you should turn them in early. That's why I give you the journals ahead of time and say, hey, you can turn these things in whenever you get through them. We should have been that Thursday, the day before. We should have been 2 days before, whatever. Yeah. So, there you are. Alright, go ahead and put those away and take out. Oh shoot, how many? I missed a bunch of you. Let me see your hands if I missed you.
Hey, I didn't get a stamp.